Welcome, motorsports connoisseurs. I'm James Thornton, lead analyst for the Global Motorsports Review. Joining me today is former race engineer and motorsports strategist Dr. Fiona Voss. We're here to provide a detailed, data-driven critique of two major series this past week: MotoGP's Grand Prix of the Americas and the recent NASCAR Cup Series events at Martinsville and Darlington.
Thank you, James. A fascinating week of racing across the Atlantic. We saw history made in Texas, a strategic masterclass in Virginia, and a shifting of the guard in MotoGP's constructor hierarchy. Let's not waste any time and dive straight into the data.
MotoGP, Red Bull Grand Prix of the United States, Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas. Let's start at COTA. Marco Bezzecchi captured his fifth consecutive MotoGP victory on Sunday, winning the United States Grand Prix. He led all 20 laps and crossed the line 2.036 seconds ahead of teammate Jorge Martín, with Pedro Acosta rounding out the podium. Fiona, this wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Bezzecchi is now the first rider since Marc Marquez in 2014 to win the opening 3 Grand Prix of a season. How significant is this achievement?
It's monumental, James. We're witnessing the birth of a new dynasty. Bezzecchi's streak of 5 consecutive GP wins, which began at the tail end of 2025, now puts him in the company of legends like Valentino Rossi, Giacomo Agostini, and Marc Marquez. But the statistic that truly boggles the mind is his record of leading 121 consecutive Grand Prix laps, breaking Jorge Lorenzo's modern-era record of 103. That's not just dominance, it's absolute, unchallenged control. He crossed the line for every lap of Sunday's race ahead of the field.
The raw pace is undeniable. However, the weekend wasn't without its blemishes. Bezzecchi crashed out of the sprint race on Saturday while chasing Francesco Bagnaia, marking the second time he's failed to finish a sprint. He was also handed a 2-place grid penalty for Sunday's GP for riding slowly on the racing line during qualifying. For all his Sunday perfection, his Saturday decision-making remains a liability. Can you critique that aspect?
A valid point, James. And it's the one chink in Bezzecchi's armor. He has an aggressive, high-risk style that yields spectacular rewards on Sundays, but backfires in the high-pressure, shorter sprint format. His crash on lap 8 while disputing second place with Martin was a carbon copy of his Thailand sprint error. It's a tactical gamble. He uses the sprint as a high-risk testing ground, which works because his Sunday race pace is so untouchable. But if he faces a rival with equal Sunday pace, those lost sprint points could cost him a championship. The penalty for blocking during qualifying also points to a slight lack of racecraft maturity.
Shifting focus to the sprint race, it was arguably the most dramatic event of the weekend. Jorge Martín, Bezzecchi's teammate at Aprilia, ended a 511-day victory drought by passing Francesco Bagnaia on the final lap to win. The race was a chaotic affair, featuring a first-lap clash that took out Marc Marquez and pole sitter Fabio Di Giannantonio. Martin's victory was built on a bold tire gamble. Can you break down that strategy, Fiona?
This was a masterclass in strategic foresight. Martin chose a medium compound rear tire for the sprint, while every other front-runner, including Bagnaia, opted for the softer rubber. On a physically demanding track like COTA, with a high likelihood of a late race safety car, this was a high-risk, high-reward play. The soft tire gives you initial grip, but degrades. The medium is slower initially, but maintains its performance. Martin bided his time, managed the gap, and then, as Bagnaia's tires began to drop off, Martin attacked. He outbraked him into turn 12 on the final lap, executing a textbook block pass. It was a perfect example of strategic patience. However, the celebration was unconventional. He crashed his Aprilia on the warm-down lap while performing a victory wheelie.
The sprint also highlighted a seismic shift in the MotoGP constructor hierarchy. Last year, Ducati locked out the top 4 positions at COTA. This year, the highest-placed Ducati was Fabio Di Giannantonio in 4th, a staggering 7 seconds behind Bezzecchi's Aprilia. Meanwhile, Aprilia celebrated a 1-2 finish in the main race. Is this the end of the Ducati era?
It's certainly a major power shift. The contrast with 2025 is stark. Ducati went from an 18-second relative advantage to a significant deficit. Aprilia's RSGP has proven incredibly competitive on both the unique surface of Brazil and now on a more conventional track like COTA using standard tires. What's more, Aprilia no longer relies solely on Bezzecchi. Martin's return to form and Ai Ogura's consistent top 10 finishes demonstrate a depth Ducati currently lacks. Ducati is in trouble. They have work to do to catch up as the series heads to Europe.
Now turning to the ovals, the NASCAR Cup Series has just concluded two critical races, the Cookout 400 at Martinsville Speedway on March 29th and the Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway on April 5th. Let's start with the most recent event at Martinsville. Chase Elliott won his first race of the season, taking the checkered flag in a strategic gamble over the dominant Denny Hamlin, who led a race-best 292 of the 400 laps. Fiona, this is a classic case of strategy over speed. How did Chase Elliott's crew chief, Alan Gustafson, pull this off?
This was a textbook example of how to win a race you have no business winning. Hamlin's car was superior. He was on rails. But Gustafson called a brilliant short pitting strategy. Elliott pitted on lap 261, taking fresh tires and fuel, while Hamlin and others stayed out. This gave Elliott a massive track position advantage after the pit cycle. On a short track like Martinsville, where passing is notoriously difficult, track position is king. Elliott restarted with 68 laps to go and simply held off Hamlin in lapped traffic. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. It's also Chevrolet's first win of the season with their new car body.
The question now becomes sustainability. Elliott has now won, but can he maintain this form to challenge for the regular season championship and secure a strong playoff seeding?
That's the million-dollar question, James. This win was a massive boost, but it didn't come from raw pace. He had his best average finish, 9.00, since 2017 and led a season-high 103 laps, but he was still outperformed by Hamlin for 90% of the race. Elliott's team needs to find more raw pace to consistently run up front. This win buys them time, but it doesn't solve the underlying performance deficit.
Let's rewind 1 week to Darlington. Tyler Reddick continued his stunning 2026 campaign by winning the Goodyear 400, his fourth victory in the first 6 races of the season. He beat Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney to the line. What's your analysis of that performance, Fiona?
This was one for the history books. Winning 4 of 6 races is an extraordinary level of dominance. But what makes the Darlington win so impressive is the adversity he overcame. He suffered battery issues that left him without a cooling suit in the cockpit of a race car on a hot day. The physical toll of managing a race car without proper cooling is immense. Despite that, he chased down Keselowski and led the final 28 laps. That's not just talent, that's grit. He's driving with a level of confidence and car control that is frankly intimidating for the rest of the field.
And looking at the championship implications, Reddick now holds a monumental 95-point lead over second-place Ryan Blaney in the regular season standings. With the playoffs still months away, how significant is this early season lead?
It's incredibly significant, but not for the points lead itself. With the current playoff format, the regular season points leader gets a valuable seeding advantage. However, the real value is the playoff points accumulated through race wins. Each win grants 5 playoff points. Reddick likely has over 20 playoff points banked already, which is a massive cushion once the playoffs begin. It means he could have a bad round and still advance. He's building a fortress for the postseason.
And for the playoffs on the bubble, the pressure is already mounting. The regular season is a quarter of the way complete, and we already have 4 different winners.
Exactly. The sense of urgency is palpable. Joey Logan, the 2024 champion, had a disastrous outing at Darlington, finishing 33rd. He's already in a position where he needs to win or consistently score top 5s to feel safe. The margin for error is shrinking rapidly.
So, summarizing the week's action, in MotoGP, we witnessed the coronation of Marco Bezzecchi as a dominant force, but with lingering questions about his Saturday aggression. Simultaneously, Aprilia announced itself as the new technical benchmark, dethroning a struggling Ducati. In NASCAR, we saw the art of the strategic victory with Chase Elliott and the raw, historic dominance of Tyler Reddick, who is building an insurmountable early-season lead.
I'd add one more overarching theme: the importance of resilience. Bezzecchi bounced back from a sprint crash to win the GP. Martin returned from over a year without a win to take a brilliant sprint victory. Elliott won despite having a slower car, and Reddick won despite his car's systems failing. The best in the world aren't just the fastest, they're the ones who can overcome adversity the best.
Fiona, as always, your insight is unparalleled. Thank you.
Thank you.
To our viewers, we hope this